The billionaire CEO froze when he saw her in full military uniform with 3 kids at his company's Veterans Day gala. Same woman he divorced for being too weak. But when she removed her helmet and the crowd gasped, he realized those weren't just any children. Hi, my beautiful family. Thank you for sticking around with me through our trying times. I really appreciate your love and support. We're finally back again to give you many more beautiful stories. If you're already hooked in for today's story and ready to enjoy it, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. The charity gala for wounded veterans was supposed to be just another corporate obligation for Nathan O'Sullivan, CEO of O'Sullivan Industries. He'd written the check, made the appearance, and was already calculating his exit strategy when he saw her across the crowded ballroom. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. The woman in the crisp army dress uniform, her auburn hair pulled back in a regulation bun, couldn't possibly be the same person who had once filled his penthouse with laughter and homemade Irish soda bread. But when she turned slightly, revealing the profile that had haunted his dreams for 5 years, Nathan's champagne flute nearly slipped from his suddenly nerveless fingers. Kathleen O'Brien, his ex-wife. The woman he'd divorced because she didn't fit into his carefully curated billionaire lifestyle. She looked magnificent. Gone was the soft, uncertain woman who had once apologized for existing in his world. In her place stood someone who commanded respect without demanding it, whose posture spoke of discipline and strength earned through trials he could only imagine. The uniform bore the insignia of a major, and Nathan found himself staring at the array of ribbons and medals adorning her chest. "Holy shit," he whispered, and immediately felt foolish for the reaction. But it was the 3 children standing beside her that made his heart stop entirely. 2 boys and a girl, all around 4 years old, dressed in their finest clothes and standing with the same military bearing as their mother. The girl had Kathleen's striking green eyes and delicate features, while the boys shared Nathan's dark hair and strong jawline. There was no mistaking whose children they were. Nathan's mind reeled as he did the math. 5 years since the divorce, the children were about 4, which meant, "Daddy, why is that man staring at us?" the little girl asked, her voice carrying across the space between them in the way only children's voices could. Kathleen's head snapped up, following her daughter's gaze until her eyes locked with Nathan's. For a moment, neither of them moved. The ballroom seemed to fade away, the elegant chatter of Seattle's elite becoming nothing more than background noise. Even from across the room, Nathan could see the flash of something in Kathleen's eyes, surprise, recognition, and something harder that he couldn't quite identify. She said something to the children, and they moved closer to her, instinctively protective. "Nathan?" His business partner, Michael Chen, appeared at his elbow. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," Nathan managed, his voice hoarse. "I've seen my past." Michael followed his gaze to where Kathleen stood, now speaking quietly to a group of veterans advocates. "Who is that?" "My ex-wife," Nathan said, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "And apparently the mother of my children." The revelation hit him like a physical blow. Kathleen had been pregnant when he'd filed for divorce, and she'd never told him. For 5 years, she'd raised 3 children, his children, alone, while he'd been building his empire and telling himself he'd made the right choice. "Jesus, Nathan," Michael breathed, "you have kids?" "I have kids," Nathan repeated, the reality of it sinking in. 3 of them. As if sensing his scrutiny, one of the boys looked directly at him. The child's expression was curious rather than hostile, but there was something in his steady gaze that reminded Nathan uncomfortably of his own ruthless business instincts. "They're beautiful," Michael said softly. "They look just like you." "They look like their mother," Nathan corrected, watching as Kathleen knelt down to adjust the little girl's dress with infinite gentleness. Thank God for that. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 5 years convincing himself that divorcing Kathleen had been a strategic decision, a necessary sacrifice for the good of his company. She'd been too soft, too kind, too ordinary for the world he was building. Her working-class Irish background, her nursing degree, her preference for quiet nights at home over glittering social events, none of it had fit the image he thought he needed. Now, seeing her in that uniform, seeing the confidence and strength radiating from her very being, Nathan realized he'd been the biggest fool in the world. "I need to talk to her," he said, already moving toward their group. "Nathan, wait," Michael caught his arm. "Think about this. You can't just walk over there and what? Pretend I don't see my own children?" Nathan shook off his friend's restraining hand. "I've already lost 5 years. I won't lose another minute." But as he made his way across the ballroom, weaving between Seattle's social elite, Nathan found his steps slowing. What was he supposed to say? How did you apologize for abandoning someone who had needed you, for missing the first years of your children's lives, for choosing ambition over love? "Excuse me?" he said, when he finally reached their group, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. "Major O'Brien?" Kathleen turned slowly, her expression carefully neutral. Up close, Nathan could see the changes 5 years had wrought. There were fine lines around her eyes that spoke of long hours and difficult decisions. Her hands, once soft from the luxury of his world, now bore the calluses of someone who had worked for everything she's achieved.
"Mr. O'Sullivan," she said formally, and Nathan winced at the distance in her voice. "I wasn't aware you supported veterans' causes." "I support many causes," Nathan replied, acutely aware of how pompous he sounded. "Though I admit, I don't always know the stories behind the people I'm supposed to be helping." Kathleen's smile was sharp as a blade. "No, you never were much for personal stories, were you?" The children had moved closer to their mother, forming a protective semicircle around her. Nathan found himself studying their faces, looking for traces of himself in their features, while marveling at how much of Kathleen he could see in each of them. "And who are these fine young soldiers?" he asked, kneeling down to their level. "I'm Liam," said the boy who had been staring at him earlier. "This is my brother Connor and my sister Maeve." Irish names, Nathan noted. Kathleen had chosen to honor her heritage, the same heritage he'd once considered a liability. "Those are strong names," Nathan said, and was surprised to find he meant it. "Are you taking care of your mother?" "We take care of each other," Maeve said with the solemnity only a 4-year-old could muster. "Mama taught us that family is the most important thing." The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. Family, the thing he'd thrown away for the sake of his image, his company, his pride. "Your mother is a very smart woman," Nathan said softly. "She's a hero," Connor added, his chest puffing with pride. "She saves people." "Does she?" Nathan asked, looking up at Kathleen, who was watching the interaction with an expression he couldn't read. "Major O'Brien served 2 tours in Afghanistan," said the veteran advocate standing beside her. "She's a trauma surgeon, saved dozens of lives." Nathan felt his world tilt. While he'd been building his empire, Kathleen had been saving lives in one of the most dangerous places on Earth. While he'd been networking at parties like this one, she'd been performing surgery in war zones. "I didn't know," he said, still looking at Kathleen. "I should have known." "Why?" Kathleen asked, her voice carefully controlled. "We're not exactly in the same circles anymore." "Maybe we should be," Nathan said, the words coming out before he could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan could feel the weight of his children's curious gazes, the tension radiating from Kathleen, the awkwardness of the moment stretching between them like a chasm. "Mama," Liam said quietly, tugging at Kathleen's uniform sleeve, "can we go see the helicopters now?" "Of course, sweetheart," Kathleen said, her voice immediately warming as she addressed her son. "Excuse us, Mr. O'Sullivan, we have other commitments." She was dismissing him. After 5 years, after discovering he had 3 children he'd never known existed, she was walking away. "Kathleen, wait," Nathan called after her, but she was already moving, her children flanking her like a small army. He watched them go, noting how other people stepped aside to let them pass, how the children moved with the same quiet dignity as their mother. They were a unit, a family, complete without him. Nathan O'Sullivan, who had built a billion-dollar empire through sheer force of will and ruthless determination, had never felt more powerless in his life. Have you ever seen someone from your past and realized that letting them go was the biggest mistake of your life? Sometimes, the people we think we've outgrown are the ones who help us become who we're meant to be. Nathan O'Sullivan had built his fortune on the principle that emotion was weakness, that personal connections were liabilities, and that success required the ability to cut losses without looking back. As he stood in his penthouse office 3 days after the charity gala, staring out at the Seattle skyline, he wondered when those principles had become his prison. The private investigator's report lay open on his mahogany desk, 47 pages that detailed the life Kathleen O'Brien had built without him. Every page felt like an indictment of the man he'd chosen to become. Kathleen O'Brien, he read aloud to the empty room. Age 32. Graduated first in her class from the University of Washington Medical School. Commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army Medical Corps. Served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Promoted to major. Decorated for valor under fire. Currently stationed at Joint Base Lewis McChord, serving as Chief of Trauma Surgery. Nathan closed his eyes, remembering the woman who had once been too nervous to order wine at expensive restaurants, who had apologized for her cheap clothes from Target, who had asked him 3 times if he was sure he wanted to marry someone ordinary like her. The intercom buzzed. "Sir, your mother is here to see you." Nathan straightened his tie, composing himself before Eleanor O'Sullivan swept into his office like a force of nature. At 72, she was still formidable, silver hair perfectly coiffed, designer suit impeccable, and eyes that missed nothing. "You look terrible," she announced, settling into the chair across from his desk without invitation. "Michael told me you saw Kathleen at the Veterans Gala." "Michael has a big mouth," Nathan muttered. "Michael is concerned about you," Eleanor corrected, "as am I. You've been impossible to work with for the past 3 days." Nathan had always admired his mother's directness, even when it was inconvenient. Eleanor O'Sullivan had built her own empire in real estate while raising him as a single mother, teaching him that success was the only acceptable outcome and that personal weaknesses were luxuries they couldn't afford. "I have children, Mother," Nathan said quietly. 3 of them. Eleanor's expression didn't change. "I know." "You know?" Nathan stared at her. "How long have you known?" "Since about 6 months after your divorce. I had Catherine investigated when she disappeared so completely. I needed to ensure she wouldn't become a liability to your career." Nathan felt anger bubble up from somewhere deep in his chest. "You knew I had children and you never told me?" "You made your choice, Nathan," Eleanor said, her voice taking on the steel he remembered from his childhood. "You chose to divorce her because she didn't fit the life you were building. I wasn't going to let you destroy your future over guilt. They're my children." "Children you were better off without," Eleanor said firmly. "Look at what you've accomplished. O'Sullivan Industries is worth $3 billion. You're one of the most influential men in the Pacific Northwest. You have everything you ever wanted." "Do I?" Nathan asked, gesturing toward the investigator's report. "Because according to this, the woman I threw away became everything I claimed she could never be. She's a decorated war hero, a respected surgeon, a mother who raised 3 incredible children. What exactly did I accomplish by letting her go?" Eleanor's expression softened slightly.
You accomplished your dreams, Nathan. The company, the influence, the respect of your peers. That's what matters. Is it? Nathan turned back to the window, looking out at the city he'd helped shape. I'm 41 years old, Mother. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I go home to an empty penthouse every night. When I die, what exactly will I leave behind? A legacy, Eleanor said quietly. An empire. Kathleen left 3 children who call her a hero, Nathan said. Which of us really built something that will last? Before Eleanor could respond, Michael Chen knocked and entered, his expression troubled. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but we have a situation. The Times is running a story tomorrow about your connection to Major O'Brien and the children. Nathan's blood ran cold. How did they? Someone at the charity gala took photos, Michael explained. The story is about your secret family and questions about why you weren't supporting them financially. Christ, Nathan muttered. What's the angle? Billionaire CEO abandons pregnant wife, later discovers she became a war hero while raising his children alone. Michael read from his phone. They're painting you as either a deadbeat dad or a man who didn't know he had children. Neither narrative is good for the company. Eleanor stood abruptly. I'll call our lawyers. We can get an injunction. No, Nathan said firmly. No lawyers, no injunctions, no cover-ups. Nathan, be reasonable, Eleanor said. This could destroy everything you've built. Maybe it should, Nathan replied. Maybe some things are more important than protecting my image. Michael stared at him. You want to let this story run? I want to control the narrative, Nathan said, his mind already working. I want to tell the truth that I was a fool who threw away the best thing that ever happened to me, and that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make up for it. That's career suicide, Eleanor said flatly. Maybe, Nathan agreed, but it's also the only honest thing I've done in 5 years. After his mother and Michael left, Nathan found himself alone with the investigator's report and his own regrets. He flipped through the pages, studying the photographs of Kathleen with her children. In one photo, she was helping Liam with what looked like a science project, her face animated with the same enthusiasm she'd once shown when explaining her nursing theories to him. In another, she was teaching Maeve to ride a bike, running alongside her with patient encouragement. A third showed her with Connor at what appeared to be a veterans event, both of them wearing proud smiles. These weren't the pictures of someone who had struggled or suffered. These were the pictures of someone who had built a rich, full life. Nathan picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd memorized years ago but had never had the courage to call. Joint Base Lewis McCord, this is Sergeant Williams. I need to speak with Major O'Brien, Nathan said. This is Nathan O'Sullivan. There was a pause. Sir, Major O'Brien is in surgery. Can I take a message? Tell her... Nathan paused, struggling with words he'd never learned to say. Tell her, I'd like to talk. About everything. Tell her, I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. I'll give her the message, sir. Nathan hung up and returned to the window, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the evening darkness. Somewhere out there, Kathleen was saving lives while he shuffled papers and worried about stock prices. Tomorrow, the whole world would know about his failure as a husband and father. His carefully constructed image would crumble, his mother would be furious, and his company would face scrutiny it had never experienced. But for the first time in 5 years, Nathan O'Sullivan felt like he might have a chance to become the man he should have been all along. If it wasn't too late. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The children have baseball practice Saturday at 10 a.m., Green Lake Park. If you want to meet them properly, you can come. But Nathan, this isn't about you. It's about them. K. Nathan stared at the message, his heart racing. She was giving him a chance. After everything he'd done, after years of absence and neglect, Kathleen O'Brien was giving him a chance to meet his children. It was more than he deserved and exactly what he needed. Saturday couldn't come fast enough.
Nathan arrived at Green Lake Park 20 minutes early, his hands sweating despite the cool Seattle morning. He changed clothes 3 times, settling on jeans and a simple blue button-down shirt, the most casual outfit he'd worn in years. The designer watch and Italian leather shoes probably still screamed billionaire, but it was the best he could do. The baseball diamond was already busy with parents setting up equipment and children warming up. Nathan spotted Kathleen immediately. She was helping the coach organize gear, her auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing cargo pants and a Mariners t-shirt that made her look more like the woman he'd married than the decorated officer he'd seen at the gala.
Liam, Connor, and Maeve were practicing their swing with foam bats, their concentration absolute. Nathan watched from a distance, marveling at how they moved with the same determined precision he'd seen in their mother's military bearing. "You came," Kathleen said, approaching him with a cautious expression. "I wasn't sure you would." "I said I would," Nathan replied, then winced at how defensive he sounded. "I mean, thank you for giving me this chance." "This isn't for you," Kathleen said firmly. "The kids have been asking questions since the gala. They deserve to know who their father is, even if—" She trailed off, leaving the rest unsaid. "Even if he's a disappointment," Nathan finished. "I understand." Kathleen studied his face for a long moment. "Nathan, I need you to understand something. These children have a routine, a structure, a life that works. I won't let you disrupt that because you're suddenly feeling guilty." "It's not guilt," Nathan said, though he wasn't sure that was entirely true. "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicated," Kathleen said. "Are you here because you want to be their father or because you want to feel better about yourself?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe both. I know that's not the answer you want to hear, but it's honest." Kathleen nodded slowly. Honesty is a start. Before Nathan could respond, Maeve came running over, her face flushed with excitement. "Mama, Coach says we can start the scrimmage. Can the tall man play too?" Nathan looked down at his daughter, and felt something shift in his chest. "I don't know much about baseball," he said carefully. "That's okay," Maeve said with 4-year-old confidence. "Connor doesn't know much either, but he tries really hard." "Maeve, this is Nathan," Kathleen said gently. "Remember we talked about people being related to us in different ways?" Maeve nodded solemnly. "Are you our daddy?" The simple question hung in the air like a challenge. Nathan looked at Kathleen, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod. "Yes," Nathan said, his voice rougher than he intended. "I am." "Where have you been?" Maeve asked, with the brutal directness only children possessed. Nathan knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that were exactly like Kathleen's. "I've been working, but I should have been here with you." "Mama works too," Maeve said, "but she's always here for us." "Your mama is a much better person than I am," Nathan said. "Are you going to stay now?" Maeve asked. Nathan looked up at Kathleen, seeing something vulnerable in her expression for the first time. "I'm going to try," he said, "if your mama says it's okay." "Can he play baseball with us, Mama?" Maeve asked, already tugging at Nathan's hand. "I suppose," Kathleen said, though Nathan could see the uncertainty in her eyes. The next hour was both the best and most humbling of Nathan's life. He learned that Liam was incredibly analytical, approaching each play like a chess match. Connor was the peacemaker, always making sure everyone was included. And Maeve was fearless, throwing herself into every activity with complete enthusiasm. "You're pretty good at this," Liam said as Nathan helped him adjust his batting stance. "Have you played baseball before?" "A long time ago," Nathan said. "My father taught me when I was about your age." "Where is your daddy now?" Connor asked, joining them. "He died when I was 12, Nathan said, the words coming easier than he expected. "Is that why you work so much?" Liam asked with startling insight. "Because you're sad?" Nathan stared at his son, amazed by the child's perceptiveness. "Maybe it is." "Mama says it's okay to be sad, but you shouldn't let it make you mean to people." Your mama is very wise, Nathan said, glancing over at Kathleen, who was watching their interaction with an unreadable expression. The moment of peace was shattered when Nathan's phone rang. He almost ignored it, but the caller ID showed his mother's name. "I'm sorry," he said to the children. "I need to take this." "Nathan," Eleanor's voice was sharp with panic. "You need to come to the office immediately. We have a serious problem." "Mother, I'm with the children. Whatever it is can wait." "No, it cannot wait. The Times story went live early, but that's not the worst part. Someone leaked video footage of you at the charity gala, and they're painting this as if you've been hiding your family for years. The board is in emergency session." Nathan felt his stomach drop. What kind of footage? Security camera footage of you watching Kathleen and the children. The narrative is that you've been secretly monitoring your family while refusing to support them. Nathan, they're calling for your resignation. Nathan looked at Liam, Connor, and Maeve, who were waiting patiently for him to finish his call, and felt the world tilt around him. "I'll be there in an hour," he said. "Make it 30 minutes. And Nathan, bring a lawyer." Nathan hung up and found Kathleen watching him with growing concern. "What's wrong?" she asked. "The story about us hit the news," Nathan said. "It's not good." "What kind of story?" Kathleen's voice had taken on the sharp edge of someone accustomed to dealing with crises. "The kind that makes me look like I've been hiding you and the children while refusing to take responsibility for them," Nathan said. "Have you?" Kathleen asked quietly. "Not intentionally," Nathan said, "but I can see how it looks." "Daddy, are you in trouble?" Maeve asked, having overheard part of the conversation. Nathan looked down at his worried face and felt his heart break. "I might be, sweetheart." "We help people when they're in trouble," Connor said matter-of-factly. "Mama taught us that." "That's very kind of you," Nathan said, kneeling down to their level. "But this is grown-up trouble. I need to go fix it." "Will you come back?" Liam asked, his analytical mind clearly working through the implications.
"I'll try," Nathan said, though he wasn't sure it was a promise he could keep. "Nathan," Kathleen said, pulling him aside, "what exactly are you facing?" "Best case scenario, public humiliation and some awkward questions," Nathan said. "Worst case, I lose my company, my reputation, everything I've built." "And what does that mean for the children?" Kathleen asked. "I don't know," Nathan admitted, "but I won't let them pay for my mistakes." Kathleen studied his face for a long moment. "You know what? I'm coming with you." "What? No, Kathleen, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she said firmly. "You're about to face a room full of people who think they know our story. Maybe it's time they heard it from both of us." "This could destroy your military career," Nathan said. "The media attention, the scrutiny." "Nathan," Kathleen interrupted, "I've been shot at in Afghanistan. I think I can handle a few reporters and some corporate suits." As they made arrangements for the children to stay with another parent from the team, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the sense that he wasn't facing a crisis alone. "Why are you doing this?" he asked Kathleen as they walked to their cars. "Because despite everything that happened between us, you're still the father of my children," she said. "And because maybe it's time the world knew the truth about who we really are." Nathan stared at her, this woman who had become so much more than he'd ever imagined, and realized that losing his company might be the least of his concerns. He was in danger of falling in love with his ex-wife all over again, and this time he had no idea if he deserved a second chance. The O'Sullivan Industries headquarters had been transformed into a media circus. News vans lined the street, reporters thrust microphones at anyone entering the building, and camera crews jockeyed for position on the sidewalk. Nathan had never seen his pristine corporate sanctuary look so chaotic. "This is insane," murmured as they sat in Nathan's car, watching the spectacle from the parking garage. "I've seen war zones with less commotion." "Welcome to my world," Nathan said grimly, "though I've never been on this side of the feeding frenzy before." Kathleen turned to study his profile. "Having second thoughts about bringing me?" "About a dozen of them," Nathan admitted.
This isn't your fight, Kathleen. You could still leave. Let me handle this alone. And miss seeing the infamous Nathan O'Sullivan corporate machine in action? Kathleen's voice held a note of challenge. Not a chance. As they rode the elevator to the executive floor, Nathan found himself hyper-aware of Kathleen's presence beside him. She stood with military bearing, her spine straight, eyes focused ahead. She'd changed into a simple black blazer and slacks, but she looked more commanding than most of the executives he knew. "Nathan," she said quietly, "before we go in there, I need you to know something. I didn't keep the children from you to hurt you." "I know," Nathan said, though he wasn't sure he meant it. "Do you?" Kathleen turned to face him fully. "Because when you left, when you filed those divorce papers, you made it very clear that I wasn't enough for your life. I was pregnant, alone, and convinced that my children would be better off without a father who saw them as inconveniences." The elevator doors opened onto chaos. The executive floor buzzed with activity. Lawyers, PR consultants, and board members clustered in urgent conversations. Nathan's assistant, Patricia, hurried over looking frazzled. "Mr. O'Sullivan, thank God you're here. The board has been in session for 2 hours. She paused, noticing Kathleen. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this is a private corporate matter." "She's with me," Nathan said firmly. "Major O'Brien will be joining us." Patricia's eyes widened with recognition. The Major O'Brien from the news? "The same," Kathleen said with a slight smile, "though I prefer to think of myself as the mother of Nathan's children." The boardroom fell silent when Nathan entered with Kathleen. 12 of Seattle's most powerful business leaders sat around the polished conference table, their faces ranging from curious to openly hostile. Eleanor O'Sullivan sat at the head of the table, her expression thunderous. "Nathan," said Richard Blackwood, the board chairman, "we need to discuss the situation immediately. The media attention is already affecting our stock price." "Then let's discuss it," Nathan said, helping Kathleen into a chair before taking his own seat. "I'd like you all to meet Major Kathleen O'Brien, formerly my wife, and the mother of my children." "Nathan," Eleanor's voice cut through the room like ice, "I don't think it's appropriate to involve outsiders in company business." "She's not an outsider," Nathan said, meeting his mother's gaze steadily. "She's family, and since this crisis is about our family, I'd say she's exactly the person who should be here." Board member Janet Morrison leaned forward. "Major O'Brien, while we appreciate your service to our country, surely you understand that this is a delicate corporate matter." "I understand that you're all sitting here discussing my children as if they're a liability," Kathleen said. "I find that interesting, coming from people who've never met them." "The issue isn't the children," Richard said carefully. "It's the perception that Nathan has been hiding them while building his public image as a successful bachelor businessman." "I wasn't hiding them. I didn't know they existed." "But you knew your ex-wife was pregnant when you divorced her?" Eleanor said, her voice sharp with accusation. The room fell silent. Nathan felt every eye on him, waiting for his response. "No," he said quietly, "I didn't." "Nathan," Eleanor's voice held a warning, "we've discussed this." "We've discussed a lot of things, Mother," Nathan said, his voice growing stronger. He turned to address the room. 5 years ago, I divorced my wife because I was an arrogant fool who thought success meant cutting off anything that didn't fit my image of what a billionaire should be. I thought Kathleen wasn't sophisticated enough, wasn't polished enough, wasn't connected enough to be part of my world.
"Nathan, don't!" Eleanor started. "I was wrong," Nathan continued, ignoring his mother's interruption. "While I was building this company, Kathleen was building a life that mattered. She became a doctor, served her country, saved lives in Afghanistan, and raised 3 incredible children. She accomplished more in 5 years than I've accomplished in my entire life." "That's very touching," said board member Thomas Walsh, "but it doesn't solve our PR problem." "What if it does?" Kathleen said, speaking for the first time since her introduction.
What if instead of treating this as a scandal to be managed, you treated it as a story of redemption?" "What do you mean?" Janet asked. "Nathan made a mistake," Kathleen said simply. "He's owning up to it, he's taking responsibility for his children, and he's showing that people can change, can grow, can become better than they were." "The media doesn't care about redemption stories," Richard said skeptically. "This one might," Kathleen said, pulling out her phone, "because I've been getting calls all morning from reporters who want to hear my side of the story. They're not just interested in the scandal. They want to know about the woman who became a decorated veteran while raising triplets alone." Eleanor's face had gone pale. "What kind of calls?" "CNN, NBC, The Washington Post," Kathleen said casually. "They want to know about the journey from divorce to military service, about raising children as a single mother, about what it's like to have your ex-husband suddenly want to be part of your life again." "You can't talk to them," Eleanor said quickly. "The publicity would be entirely under my control," Kathleen finished. "I decide what story gets told, how it gets told, and when it gets told." Nathan stared at her, beginning to understand. "You're offering to help control the narrative." "I'm offering to tell our story," Kathleen corrected. "The real story. Not the one your mother's investigators pieced together, not the one the media is speculating about, but the truth." "And what's the truth?" Richard asked. Kathleen looked directly at Nathan. "That sometimes love isn't enough the first time around. That sometimes people need to grow apart before they can grow together. That sometimes the biggest mistakes can lead to the most important lessons." "That's assuming Nathan has learned anything," Eleanor said coldly. "I've learned that the woman I divorced was stronger than I ever imagined," Nathan said, his eyes never leaving Kathleen's face. "I've learned that my children are remarkable human beings who don't need me to be complete, but who might benefit from having me try to be worthy of them. And I've learned," Kathleen said softly, "that the man I fell in love with is still in there somewhere. He just got lost for a while." The tension in the room was palpable. Nathan could feel the shift in power, the way the board members were reassessing the situation. "What exactly are you proposing?" Richard asked. "A joint interview," Kathleen said. "Nathan and I together telling our story honestly. No spin, no corporate messaging, just two people who made mistakes and are trying to do better." "That's incredibly risky," Thomas said. "At least this way we control the message." "Nathan," Eleanor said, her voice holding a warning, "you're talking about exposing your private life to public scrutiny. Everything you've built, everything you've worked for. Everything I've built is meaningless if I lose my children in the process," Nathan said firmly. "I've spent 5 years prioritizing the wrong things. I won't make that mistake again." Eleanor stood abruptly. "I need to speak with my son privately." "Actually," Nathan said, "I think we're done with private conversations. From now on, Kathleen is part of any decision that affects our family." "She's not your family," Eleanor said sharply. "She's your ex-wife. She's the mother of my children," Nathan said, his voice carrying a finality that surprised even him. "That makes her more family than anyone else in this room." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan could see the calculations happening in every face around the table, the reassessment of power dynamics, the recognition that something fundamental had shifted. "I'll need to think about this," Richard said finally. "Don't think too long," Kathleen said, checking her phone. "CNN wants an answer by end of business today." As the meeting disbanded, Nathan found himself alone with Kathleen in his office. She stood by the window, looking out at the city, and he was struck by how naturally she fit into his world. Not because she'd changed to accommodate it, but because she'd grown into someone who belonged anywhere she chose to be. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Because our children deserve to know their father," she said simply. "And because maybe I deserve to find out who you really are underneath all the corporate armor." Nathan moved to stand beside her at the window. "What if you don't like what you find?" "What if I do?" Kathleen asked, turning to meet his gaze. The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and danger in equal measure. Nathan realized that he wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting for a second chance at the only thing that had ever truly mattered. And for the first time in 5 years, he thought he might actually have a chance of winning. The CNN interview was scheduled for that evening, and Nathan found himself in the unusual position of being nervous about a media appearance. He'd faced hostile journalists, congressional hearings, and corporate takeover attempts with steady nerves. But the prospect of sitting beside Kathleen and exposing the truth about their marriage terrified him. "You're pacing," Kathleen observed from her position on his office couch, where she'd been reviewing the questions CNN had submitted in advance. "I don't pace," Nathan said, then realized he was indeed wearing a path in the carpet. "I strategize in motion. Is that what we're calling it?" Kathleen's smile was gentle, almost fond. "Nathan, sit down. You're making me nervous, and I've been shot at by Taliban fighters." Nathan settled into the chair across from her, but his leg bounced with restless energy. "What if this backfires? What if the interview makes everything worse? Then we'll deal with it," Kathleen said. "Together."
The word hung in the air between them, loaded with implications neither of them was ready to examine too closely. "Kathleen," Nathan said slowly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "Always," she said, closing the folder of questions. "When you found out you were pregnant, did you try to tell me?" Kathleen's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "Nathan, what does it matter now? We can't change." "It matters because I need to know," Nathan said firmly. "I need to know if I'm the kind of man who would abandon his pregnant wife, or if I'm the kind of fool who never knew he was about to become a father." Kathleen was quiet for a long moment, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the folder. "I did try to tell you." Nathan's heart stopped. "What?" "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you filed for divorce," Kathleen said quietly. "I was terrified, confused, but I knew you had a right to know, so I called your office." "I never got any calls from you," Nathan said, his mind racing. "I know. Your assistant said you'd left instructions not to put through any calls from me, so I tried your cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail every time." "I never got any voicemails." "I left 12, Kathleen said, her voice growing stronger. "I begged you to call me back, said it was urgent, said I had something important to tell you. Nothing." Nathan felt sick. "Kathleen, I swear to you, I never got those messages." "So I came to the building," Kathleen continued. "I waited in the lobby for 3 hours hoping to catch you. Security finally escorted me out. They said you'd given explicit instructions that I wasn't to be allowed upstairs." "That's impossible," Nathan said, but even as he said it, a cold dread was settling in his stomach. "I even wrote you a letter," Kathleen said, pulling a worn envelope from her purse. "I was going to mail it, but I decided to deliver it in person one last time. I gave it to your mother." Nathan stared at the envelope, his name written in Kathleen's careful handwriting. "You gave this to my mother?" "She came to my apartment," Kathleen said. "She said she'd make sure you got it. She said she'd understand how difficult the situation was and that she'd help me figure out the best way to tell you." Nathan's hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. The letter was dated 5 years ago, just 3 weeks after their divorce was finalized. "My dearest Nathan, I know you don't want to hear from me, and I know our marriage is over, but I have something to tell you that I can't keep to myself. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby. I don't expect anything from you. I know you made your choice when you filed for divorce, and I respect that. But I thought you should know that there's going to be a child in this world who shares your DNA, your intelligence, your stubborn streak. I'm scared, Nathan. I'm scared of raising a child alone, scared of not being enough, scared of messing up something so important. But I'm also hopeful. This baby is part of you, and despite everything that's happened between us, I loved you completely. I still do."
If you want to be part of this child's life, I would welcome that. If you don't, I'll understand. But please, just let me know either way. The silence is killing me. All my love, Kathleen. Nathan read the letter twice, his vision blurring with tears he hadn't shed in years. She never gave this to me. I know, Kathleen said softly. When I didn't hear back from you, I realized that you'd made your choice. Your mother confirmed it when she came to see me again. She came to see you again? About a month later, she said she'd spoken to you, that you'd made it clear you wanted nothing to do with the baby or me. She said it would be better for everyone if I just disappeared. Nathan felt rage building in his chest, a fury unlike anything he'd ever experienced. What exactly did she say? She said you were building something important, something that would change the world. She said a baby would derail your dreams, that I would drag you down. She said if I really loved you, I'd let you go. And you believed her? Nathan, you just divorced me because I wasn't sophisticated enough for your world, Kathleen said, her voice breaking slightly. When your mother confirmed that you wanted nothing to do with me or the baby, it just reinforced what I already believed about myself. Nathan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. I need to see my mother, now. Nathan, wait. No, he said, his voice sharp with anger. She's been lying to both of us for 5 years. She's been manipulating us, keeping us apart, keeping me from my children. It won't change anything, Kathleen said. The years are still lost. The children still grew up without their father. But it changes everything about why they grew up without their father, Nathan said fiercely. It changes everything about who I am, who we are, what this all means. He was heading for the door when Patricia's voice came through the intercom. Mr. O'Sullivan, your mother is here to see you. She says it's urgent. Nathan and Kathleen exchanged glances. Send her in, Nathan said. Eleanor O'Sullivan entered the office like a woman preparing for battle, her designer suit impeccable, her expression determined. She stopped short when she saw Kathleen holding the letter. I see you've been having a heart-to-heart, Eleanor said, her voice carefully neutral. I've been reading my mail, Nathan said, holding up the letter. 5 years late, but better than never. Eleanor's composure didn't crack. Nathan, I did what I thought was best for you. You lied to me, Nathan said, his voice deadly quiet. You manipulated me. You kept me from my children. I protected you, Eleanor said firmly. You were building an empire. You had responsibilities, obligations, a future that stretched far beyond one woman and her inconvenient pregnancy. Inconvenient? Kathleen stood, her military bearing evident. Those children are your grandchildren. Those children are proof of a mistake, Eleanor said coldly. A mistake that would have cost Nathan everything he'd worked for. They're the best thing that ever happened to me, Nathan said, his voice breaking. And you stole 5 years of their lives from me. I saved your career, Eleanor said. I saved your reputation. I saved your future. You destroyed my family, Nathan said. You destroyed the woman I loved. You destroyed any chance I had of being the father my children deserved. Eleanor's mask finally slipped, revealing the desperation beneath. Nathan, you have to understand. I built this company from nothing. I sacrificed everything to give you opportunities I never had. I wasn't going to let you throw it all away for some nurse from the wrong side of town. Some nurse? Kathleen's voice was ice. I'm a decorated army surgeon who saved more lives than you've ever touched. I've earned everything I have through my own merit, not through manipulation and lies. You would have held him back, Eleanor said. You would have made him ordinary. She made me extraordinary, Nathan said quietly. She made me a better man than I ever thought I could be. And you took that away from me. Eleanor turned to Kathleen, her expression pleading. You have to understand. I was protecting him. I was protecting his future, his legacy. You were protecting your own legacy, Kathleen said, your own vision of what his life should be. You never cared about what would make him happy. Happiness is a luxury, said. Success is survival. Nathan looked at his mother, this woman who had shaped every aspect of his life, who had taught him to value achievement over love, and felt something break inside him. You're fired, he said quietly. Eleanor, what? You're fired from the board, from the company, from my life, Nathan said. I want your resignation letter on my desk by morning. Nathan, you can't. I can and I will, Nathan said. You've had 5 years to tell me the truth. You've had 5 years to let me be a father to my children. You chose manipulation over honesty, control over love. Eleanor's face crumpled, and for a moment, she looked like a frightened old woman instead of the corporate powerhouse she'd always been. I was protecting you, she whispered. You were protecting yourself, Nathan said sadly. You were so afraid of losing control that you destroyed the only thing that ever really mattered to me. As Eleanor left the office, her shoulders bent with defeat, Nathan turned to Kathleen. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry for everything, for not knowing, for not fighting harder, for letting her control our lives. We both let her control our lives, Kathleen said softly. We both let our own insecurities blind us to what was really happening. Nathan moved closer to her, close enough to see the tears gathering in her eyes. Can you forgive me? The question is, Kathleen said, can you forgive yourself? Before Nathan could answer, his phone buzzed with an alert. The CNN interview was in 2 hours, and suddenly, everything had changed. What do we tell them? Nathan asked. The truth, Kathleen said. All of it, the whole truth, about love and loss and manipulation and second chances. And about us? Nathan asked. What do we tell them about us? Kathleen looked at him for a long moment, and Nathan saw something shift in her expression. A softening, a possibility, a door opening that had been closed for 5 years. We tell them we're figuring it out, she said. One day at a time. Have you ever discovered that the biggest obstacles in your life were created by the people who claim to love you most? Sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to recognize the difference between protection and control. The CNN interview started well. Nathan and Kathleen sat side by side on the studio couch, their hands occasionally brushing as they spoke with honest emotion about their story. Anderson Cooper asked tough but fair questions, and Nathan felt hope building as they explained the truth about Eleanor's manipulation. So you never knew about the pregnancy? Cooper asked. Not until I saw the children at the charity gala. Every attempt Kathleen made to contact me was blocked by my mother. I thought she had simply moved on with her life. And Major O'Brien, when you realized Mr. O'Sullivan's mother had been intercepting your messages, how did that make you feel? Kathleen's voice was steady, professional, angry, betrayed, but also relieved to finally understand why the man I loved seemed to abandon me when I needed him most. Cooper leaned forward. Do you still love him? The question hung in the air. Nathan felt his heart stop as he waited for her answer. I love the father of my children, Kathleen said carefully. I love the man who's been trying to reconnect with them. Whether that's the same man I married, we're still figuring that out. Nathan squeezed her hand gently, grateful for her honesty. Then, everything went to hell. Cooper's producer spoke into his earpiece, and his expression shifted. I'm getting word that we have breaking news related to this story. Major O'Brien, are you aware that the Army is launching an investigation into your conduct? Kathleen's face went pale. What investigation? According to sources at the Pentagon, questions have been raised about your use of military resources for personal gain, specifically regarding your relationship with Mr. O'Sullivan and the publicity surrounding your family situation. Nathan felt his blood turn to ice. That's ridiculous. She hasn't used any military resources.
There are also allegations, Cooper continued, reading from his notes, that you may have violated military regulations regarding media appearances and political activities. I'm not engaged in political activities, Kathleen said. I'm simply telling my story. But appearing on national television with a billionaire CEO, discussing your personal relationship and family situation, could be construed as using your military position for personal benefit.
Nathan could see Kathleen's composure cracking. Her military career was everything to her, her identity, her purpose, her pride. The suggestion that she might have violated her oath was devastating. "We're going to take a quick break," Cooper announced. During the commercial break, Nathan's phone exploded with texts and calls. Michael Chen's message was the most urgent. "Eleanor's fighting back. She's got connections at the Pentagon. You need to get out of there now." "This is a setup," Nathan said to Kathleen. "My mother is behind this." "It doesn't matter who's behind it," Kathleen said, her voice hollow. "If there's an investigation, my career is over. They'll drum me out of the service. We can fight this." "No," Kathleen said firmly, "we can't. You don't understand military justice, Nathan. Even the suggestion of impropriety is enough to destroy a career." When they returned from commercial, Cooper's tone had shifted from sympathetic to adversarial. "Major O'Brien, given these new allegations, do you think it was appropriate to appear on this program?" "I think it was appropriate to tell the truth," Kathleen said, but Nathan could hear the defeat in her voice. "And Mr. O'Sullivan, some are suggesting this entire situation is a publicity stunt designed to rehabilitate your image at the expense of Major O'Brien's military career." Nathan felt rage building in his chest. "That's absolutely false." "But you do stand to benefit from this narrative, the repentant billionaire, the heroic ex-wife, the secret children. It's quite a story." "It's not a story," Nathan said angrily. "It's our life." But he could see the damage was done. The interview that was supposed to clear their names had become a trap, and Kathleen was paying the price for his mistakes once again. After they left the studio, Kathleen was silent during the drive back to Nathan's office. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from her commanding officer, Pentagon officials, and military lawyers. "Kathleen, we can fix this," Nathan said desperately. "I have lawyers, connections." "Your connections are what got us into this mess," Kathleen snapped, then immediately looked stricken. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "Yes, you did," Nathan said quietly, "and you're right. This is my fault, all of it." Kathleen's phone rang. She answered with military precision. "Major O'Brien speaking." Nathan watched her face as she listened, seeing hope die in her eyes. "I understand, sir. Yes, sir. I'll report immediately." She hung up and turned to Nathan. "I'm being relieved of my command pending a full investigation. I have to report to base immediately." "What does that mean?" "It means my career is over," Kathleen said flatly. "It means I'll be lucky if I don't face a court-martial." Nathan pulled over to the side of the road. "Kathleen, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "I know," she said, but her voice was distant. "But it doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what happened. We can fight this together." "No," Kathleen said, turning to face him. "We can't. Don't you see? This is exactly what happened 5 years ago. My association with you, your world, your problems, it destroys everything I've built." "That's not fair," Nathan said. "This is my mother's doing, not mine." "Your mother is your responsibility," Kathleen said. "Your family, your world, your legacy. I can't keep paying the price for choices you made." Nathan felt his heart breaking. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying this was a mistake," Kathleen said, tears streaming down her face. "I thought we could make this work, but I was wrong. Your world and mine don't mix. They never did." "What about the children? What about us?" "There is no us," Kathleen said, her voice breaking. "There's you and there's me. And there are 3 children who deserve better than to be caught in the crossfire of our disasters." Nathan's phone rang. Patricia's voice was panicked. "Mr. O'Sullivan, you need to get to the office immediately. The board has called an emergency meeting. They're voting on your removal as CEO."
"Not now, Patricia," Nathan said. "Sir, your mother is leading the charge. She's claiming you're having a mental breakdown, that you're unfit to lead the company." Nathan closed his eyes. Eleanor's revenge was complete. She was destroying both of them. "I have to go," he said to Kathleen. "I know," she said. "And I have to go too. Back to my base, back to my real life." "And the children?" "Will be protected from all of this," Kathleen said firmly. "I won't let them be used as pawns in our war." As Nathan drove away, leaving Kathleen to face her own crisis alone, he realized that his second chance was nothing more than an illusion. His mother had won after all. She'd separated them again, destroyed their reputations, and ensured that they would never be able to build a life together. The board meeting was a massacre. Eleanor had prepared thoroughly, presenting evidence of Nathan's erratic behavior, his poor judgment, and his inability to prioritize the company's interests. "You're not well, Nathan," she said with false concern. "This obsession with your ex-wife, this need to play house with children you barely know, it's affecting your ability to lead." "Those children are my family," Nathan said. "Those children are strangers," Eleanor replied. "And now they're going to cost you everything you've worked for." The vote was unanimous. Nathan O'Sullivan was removed as CEO of O'Sullivan Industries, effective immediately. As security escorted him from the building he'd built, the company he'd created, Nathan felt the weight of his failures crushing down on him. He'd lost his company, his reputation, and most importantly, he'd lost Kathleen again. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Daddy, where are you? Mama is crying and she won't tell us why. Are you coming home? Liam." Nathan stared at the message, realizing that his son didn't even know where home was for him anymore. The children thought of him as their father, but he'd proven once again that he was incapable of protecting the people he loved. Standing on the street outside his former company, Nathan O'Sullivan had never felt more alone. He'd fought to get his family back, only to lose everything that mattered in the process. The darkness was complete, and for the first time in his life, Nathan couldn't see a way forward.
Nathan sat in his empty penthouse, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. The apartment felt cavernous without the constant buzz of phone calls and meetings that had defined his life for the past decade. His phone lay silent on the coffee table. No one from his former company had called, no board members had reached out, no business associates had offered support. He'd been Nathan O'Sullivan, billionaire CEO, for so long that he'd forgotten who he was without the title. The sound of the doorbell cut through his self-pity. Nathan almost ignored it, but the ringing persisted with the determined rhythm of someone who wouldn't give up. He opened the door to find Liam, Connor, and Maeve standing in the hallway, their small faces serious with purpose. Behind them stood an older woman with graying hair and kind eyes. "Daddy!" Maeve launched herself at his legs. "You didn't come home." Nathan knelt down, gathering his daughter into his arms while looking up at the woman. "I'm sorry, I don't think we've met." "I'm Margaret O'Brien," she said with a slight Irish accent, "Kathleen's mother. The children were quite insistent that they needed to see you. We told Grandma Maggie that you were sad," Connor said, moving to stand beside Nathan. "She said sometimes when grown-ups are sad, they need their family." "Where's your mother?" Nathan asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "She's at the base," Liam said with the matter-of-fact tone of a child who'd overheard too many serious conversations. "She's been there for 2 days. The mean people won't let her come home." Nathan felt his heart clench. "I'm sorry, this is all my fault." "Mama says when something is broken, you fix it," Maeve said, climbing onto his lap. "Are you going to fix it?" "I don't know how," Nathan admitted, the words coming out before he could stop them. "Mrs. O'Brien," Margaret said gently, "may I speak with you privately?" Nathan settled the children in his living room with tablets and snacks, marveling at how their presence immediately made the vast space feel like a home. Margaret followed him to the kitchen, her expression thoughtful. "They've been asking about you constantly," she said. "Kathleen told them you were busy with work, but children know when adults are lying."
I'm not lying, Nathan said. I am busy. I'm busy destroying everything I touch. Margaret studied him with eyes that reminded him of Kathleen's. My daughter came home from that interview broken. She won't tell me what happened, but she's been crying for 2 days. She's better off without me, Nathan said. Every time I try to be part of her life, I make things worse. Do you love her? Margaret asked bluntly. More than anything, Nathan said without hesitation. Do you love those children? They're everything to me. Then why are you sitting here feeling sorry for yourself instead of fighting for them? Nathan stared at her. Mrs. O'Brien, I lost my company. My mother destroyed Kathleen's career. I have nothing left to fight with. Margaret laughed, a sound both warm and sharp. You think you need money and power to fight for your family? Child, you've been living in that world too long. I don't understand. Those children in there, they don't care about your company or your money. They care about whether their father shows up when they need him. Margaret's voice grew fierce. And my daughter? She's the strongest woman I know. She survived a childhood in foster care, put herself through medical school, served her country in war zones, and raised 3 beautiful children alone. You think she's going to let some bureaucrats in Washington destroy her? The military investigation will find that she's done nothing wrong, Margaret said firmly, because she hasn't. The only question is whether she'll have to fight alone or with her family beside her. Nathan felt something shift inside him. What are you saying? I'm saying stop thinking like a businessman and start thinking like a father. Your children need you. Your wife needs you. And you need to decide what kind of man you want to be. Ex-wife, Nathan corrected automatically. Margaret smiled. Is that what you want her to be? Before Nathan could answer, Liam appeared in the kitchen doorway. Daddy, can we talk to you? Nathan knelt down as all 3 children gathered around him. They had the same serious expression, and he realized they'd been planning this conversation. We heard Mama crying, Connor said. She tries to be quiet, but we know. Is it because of us? Maeve asked, her green eyes wide with worry. Are we making trouble for you and Mama? No, Nathan said firmly. You 3 are the best thing that ever happened to me. Any trouble is because of grown-up mistakes, not because of you. Then why don't you live with us? Liam asked with his characteristic directness. Nathan looked at their faces, seeing hope and confusion and love in equal measure. It's complicated, buddy. Adults always say that, Connor said, but it's not complicated. You love us, we love you, we love Mama, Mama loves us. That's family. Mama loves you too, Maeve said matter-of-factly. She looks at your picture when she thinks we're not watching. Nathan's breath caught. She has a picture of me? From when you were married, Liam said. She says you looked happy then. I was happy then, Nathan said quietly. I was happier than I'd ever been in my life. Then why did you leave? Connor asked. Nathan looked at these 3 incredible children, seeing their father's analytical mind in Liam, their mother's empathy in Connor, and a fierce independence in Maeve that belonged to both parents. Because I was scared, he said honestly. I was scared I wasn't good enough for your mother, so I left before she could figure that out. That's silly, Maeve said. Mama always says you're good enough just because you're you. Does she? Nathan asked. She says everyone is good enough just because they're them, Liam clarified. But she smiles different when she says it about you. Nathan felt his heart breaking and healing at the same time. What do you think I should do?
Fight for us, Connor said simply, like Mama fought for us when the mean people tried to take us away. What mean people? Nathan asked, suddenly alert. When we were little, Liam said, some people said Mama was too young to take care of us alone, but she didn't give up. She fought and fought until they let us stay together. Nathan felt a surge of pride and love for this woman who had protected their children when he hadn't even known they existed. Daddy, Maeve said, climbing back onto his lap, are you gonna fight for us? Nathan looked at his children, then at Margaret, who was watching him with knowing eyes. For the first time in days, he felt something other than despair.
Yes, he said, his voice growing stronger. I'm going to fight for all of us. Even if it's hard? Connor asked. Especially because it's hard, Nathan said. The best things in life are worth fighting for. After Margaret left with promises to bring the children back the next day, Nathan sat alone in his living room. But it felt different now. It felt like a place where a family could live, where children could play, where love could grow. He picked up his phone and dialed Michael Chan's number. Nathan, Michael's voice was cautious. Are you okay? I'm better than I've been in years, Nathan said. I need your help. Of course. What do you need? I need you to help me take down my mother, Nathan said. And I need you to help me win back my family. Nathan, your mother controls the board now. She has all the power. She has corporate power, Nathan corrected. But I have something she doesn't. What's that? The truth, Nathan said, and a family worth fighting for. As he hung up, Nathan felt a clarity he hadn't experienced in years. He'd spent his entire adult life trying to prove he was worthy of success, of respect, of love. But his children had shown him something profound. Love wasn't something you earned through achievement. It was something you chose, something you fought for, something you protected. Tomorrow, he would begin the fight of his life. Not for money or power or corporate control, but for the only things that truly mattered: his children, the woman he loved, and the family they could build together. Eleanor O'Sullivan had taught him that success was survival, but Kathleen and the children had taught him that love was living. It was time to choose life. Nathan stood outside the O'Sullivan Industries boardroom, but this time he wasn't alone. Michael Chen flanked him on one side, while Patricia, his former assistant who had quit in protest after his firing, carried a briefcase full of evidence on the other. Behind them, Margaret O'Brien waited with Liam, Connor, and Maeve, who had insisted on coming to help Daddy fight the mean lady. "Are you ready for this?" Michael asked. "I've been ready for 5 years," Nathan said. "I just didn't know it." The boardroom fell silent when Nathan entered. Eleanor sat at the head of the table in his former chair, her expression shifting from surprise to carefully controlled anger. "Nathan," she said coldly, "I wasn't aware you had a meeting scheduled." "I called this meeting," said Richard Blackwood, the board chairman. "Mr. O'Sullivan has requested an opportunity to address the board regarding his termination." "There's nothing to address," Eleanor said firmly. "The vote was unanimous. The decision is final." "Actually," Nathan said, settling into a chair at the opposite end of the table, "I think there's quite a lot to address. Patricia, would you distribute the documents?" Patricia moved around the table, placing thick folders in front of each board member. Eleanor's face went pale as she saw the contents. "What is this?" Richard asked, flipping through pages of financial records, phone logs, and correspondence. "Evidence," Nathan said simply. "Evidence that my mother has been manipulating this company, this board, and my personal life for years." "This is preposterous," Eleanor said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. "Is it?" Nathan stood, his voice calm but carrying the authority of a man who had nothing left to lose. Page 12 shows financial records of payments made to Pentagon officials to initiate the investigation into Major O'Brien's conduct. Page 18 contains the phone logs showing that my mother contacted media outlets to provide anonymous tips about my personal life. Board member Janet Morrison looked up from her folder. "Eleanor, is this true?" "It's fabricated," Eleanor said quickly. "Nathan is having a breakdown. He's creating conspiracy theories to justify his failures." Page 23, Nathan continued, contains recordings of conversations between my mother and various parties. "Michael, would you play track 7? Michael connected his phone to the conference room speaker system. Eleanor's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. "I need that investigation started immediately. Yes, I understand the cost. Just make sure it destroys her military career. Nathan needs to see that his association with that woman will always end in disaster."
The silence in the room was deafening. Nathan could see the shock and disgust on the faces of the board members. "There's more," Nathan said quietly. "Recordings of her bribing journalists, threatening military officials, and orchestrating the media campaign designed to destroy both my reputation and Major O'Brien's career." "Eleanor," Richard's voice was sharp with anger. "How could you do this?" "I was protecting the company," Eleanor said, her composure finally cracking. "I was protecting Nathan's future. He was about to throw away everything we built for some ordinary woman and his children." "Those children are your grandchildren," Janet said, her voice filled with disgust. "Those children are liabilities," Eleanor snapped. "They represent weakness, distraction, everything that would have made Nathan ordinary." The boardroom doors opened, and Kathleen entered in full military dress uniform. She moved with the confidence of someone who had faced congressional hearings and enemy fire, her bearing impeccable despite the stress of the past few days. "Major O'Brien," Richard stood respectfully, "thank you for coming." "Gentlemen, ladies," Kathleen nodded to the board, before turning to Nathan. "I apologize for interrupting."
"You're not interrupting," Nathan said, his heart racing at the sight of her. "You're exactly where you belong." "I wanted to inform you that the military investigation has been concluded," Kathleen said, her voice professional, but Nathan could see the relief in her eyes. "All charges have been dropped. The investigators determined that the allegations were baseless and appeared to be part of a coordinated campaign to damage my reputation." "How is that possible?" Eleanor asked, her voice shrill. "Because the truth has a way of surfacing," Kathleen said, looking directly at Eleanor. "The Pentagon discovered that several officials had been receiving unauthorized payments to initiate false investigations. They've been arrested." Eleanor's face went white. "That's impossible." "It's documented," Kathleen said, along with financial records showing those payments originated from accounts controlled by O'Sullivan Industries. Nathan felt a surge of pride watching Kathleen command the room. This was the woman he'd fallen in love with, the woman who had grown strong enough to face down anyone who threatened her family. "Mrs. O'Sullivan," Richard's voice was ice cold, "I think it's time you resign from this board. I built this company," Eleanor said desperately. "I sacrificed everything for it. I won't let Nathan destroy it for some misguided notion of love." "You didn't build anything," Nathan said quietly. "You built a prison. For me, for yourself, for everyone who got close to us." The boardroom doors opened again, and Nathan smiled as Liam, Connor, and Maeve entered with Margaret close behind. "Daddy!" Maeve ran to him, and Nathan scooped her up, not caring about boardroom protocol. "Hello, sweetheart," he said, kissing her forehead. "Did you wait patiently?" "We waited forever," Connor said, taking Nathan's free hand. "Is the mean lady going to leave us alone now?" Eleanor stared at the children, her expression shifting from anger to something that might have been longing. "They're beautiful," she said quietly. "They look like you did when you were small." "They're better than I ever was," Nathan said. "They're kind, honest, and they understand what really matters." "I was trying to protect you," Eleanor said, her voice breaking. "I was trying to give you everything I never had." "You gave me everything except the ability to love," Nathan said sadly. "You taught me that success was the only thing that mattered, that people were either assets or liabilities." "Grandma Eleanor," Liam said, stepping forward with his characteristic directness, "why don't you like us?" Eleanor looked at him, this brilliant child who shared her bloodline, and Nathan saw her facade crumble completely. "I do like you," she whispered. I don't know how to be around children. I don't know how to be around family." "It's easy," Maeve said with 4-year-old confidence. "You just love them." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, and Nathan felt something shift in his heart. This was still his mother, the woman who had worked 3 jobs to put herself through school, who had built a business empire from nothing. She was flawed, controlling, and had caused immeasurable pain, but she was also afraid. "The board needs to vote," Nathan said gently, "about my reinstatement as CEO." "That won't be necessary," Richard said.
Eleanor, your actions have brought disgrace to this company and endangered our reputation. We're calling for your immediate resignation from the board and all company positions." Eleanor nodded slowly, her fight finally gone. "I understand. However," Nathan continued, "I'm not interested in resuming my position as CEO." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. "What?" Michael asked. "I'm stepping down permanently," Nathan said, his arm around Kathleen now, his children close beside him. "Nathan," Richard said, "are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Nathan said. "I spent years building a company, but I forgot to build a life. It's time to get my priorities straight." After the meeting, Nathan found himself alone with Eleanor in the now empty boardroom. She looked older, smaller, diminished by the weight of her choices. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I truly believed I was protecting you." "I know," Nathan said, "but loving someone doesn't mean controlling them. It means wanting them to be happy, even if their happiness doesn't match your vision." "What will you do now?" Eleanor asked. "I'm going to be a father," Nathan said simply. "I'm going to be a husband if Kathleen will have me. I'm going to build something that matters. And the company will be fine without me," Nathan said. "Maybe better." Eleanor nodded slowly. "I've lost you, haven't I?" "No," Nathan said, surprising himself with the truth of it. "You've lost control of me. But if you want to be part of our family, really part of it, there's a place for you. Even after everything I've done, especially after everything you've done, those children will need their grandmother. But they'll need the real you, not the corporate executive. They'll need someone who loves them without conditions." As they left the building together, Nathan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He'd spent his entire adult life trying to prove he was worthy of his approval, his peers' his own success. Now he understood that the only approval that mattered was his own, and the only success that counted was the love of his family. Kathleen was waiting in the lobby with the children, and Nathan's heart soared at the sight of them together. "So," she said as he approached, "I hear you're unemployed." "Completely," Nathan said with a grin. "Want to hire me? I'm great with kids, I make excellent pancakes, and I'm very motivated to prove I'm worthy of a second chance." "The position of father and husband is very demanding," Kathleen said, but her eyes were sparkling. "Long hours, emotional challenges, and the pay is terrible. But the benefits are incredible," Nathan said, pulling her into his arms. "And I happen to know the boss is extraordinary." "Daddy," Maeve interrupted, "do you think I should?" "Yes," all three children chorused. Nathan looked at Kathleen, seeing love, hope, and possibility in her eyes. "I love you," he said. "I never stopped loving you." "I love you too," Kathleen said. "But this time, we do it differently. This time, we put family first."
"Always," Nathan promised, and kissed her while their children cheered and the future stretched out before them, bright with possibility. The billionaire CEO had lost his empire, but Nathan O'Sullivan had found his family, and that was the greatest success of all. 2 years later, Nathan O'Sullivan stood in the kitchen of their suburban home, flour in his hair and pancake batter on his shirt, while 5-year-old Maeve directed his breakfast-making efforts with the authority of a seasoned chef. "Daddy, the pancakes are burning," she announced, pointing at the skillet with dramatic concern. "Thank you, Chef," Nathan said, flipping the pancakes with exaggerated precision. "What would I do without my sous chef?" "Probably starve," Liam said from his position at the kitchen table, where he was helping Connor with a science project that looked suspiciously advanced for kindergarten. "Probably," Nathan agreed, marveling at how different his life had become. Gone were the pre-dawn phone calls, the high-stress meetings, the constant pressure to prove his worth through quarterly earnings. In their place was the chaos of family life, soccer practices, bedtime stories, and the kind of meaningful exhaustion that came from being fully present for the people you loved. "Mommy's home," Connor announced, hearing the sound of Kathleen's car in the driveway. The children raced to the front door, and Nathan followed, wiping his hands on a dish towel. Kathleen appeared in the doorway in her army fatigues, looking tired but radiant.
She'd been promoted to lieutenant colonel 6 months ago and now oversaw trauma surgery training for the entire base. "Welcome home, Colonel O'Sullivan," Nathan said, pulling her into his arms. "I like the sound of that," Kathleen said, kissing him thoroughly while the children made exaggerated gagging sounds. They'd remarried 6 months ago in a simple ceremony in Margaret's backyard, with only family and close friends present. No media, no corporate obligations, no one to impress except the people who mattered most. "How was your day?" Nathan asked, taking her briefcase and hanging up her jacket. "Saved 3 lives, trained 12 residents, and only had to yell at 2 people," Kathleen said, kneeling down to hug each child. "How was your day?" "Built 2 houses, reviewed 4 grant applications, and only had to fire 1 contractor," Nathan replied. Nathan's new career had surprised everyone, including himself. After leaving O'Sullivan Industries, he'd started a nonprofit foundation focused on building affordable housing for veterans and their families. The work was challenging, meaningful, and allowed him to use his business skills for something that mattered. "Daddy, tell Mama about the surprise," Maeve said, bouncing with excitement. "What surprise?" Kathleen asked, looking between Nathan and the children. "It's not ready yet," Nathan said, but his smile gave him away. "It's ready," Liam announced. "We finished the playhouse this morning." Kathleen's eyes widened. "You finished it?" For the past month, Nathan had been working with the children to build an elaborate playhouse in their backyard. It had started as a simple project, but had evolved into something that looked like a miniature version of a real house, complete with electricity, windows, and a small porch. "Can we show her now?" Connor asked. "After breakfast," Nathan said firmly. "Family rules," the children echoed, settling back into their morning routine. As they ate breakfast together, Nathan found himself watching his family with a contentment he'd never experienced during his corporate years. Liam was explaining quantum physics to his younger siblings, Connor was making sure everyone had enough orange juice, and Maeve was planning their weekend activities with military precision. "You know," Kathleen said quietly, "I never thought I'd see you this happy." "I never thought I'd deserve to be this happy," Nathan replied. "You deserve it," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. The doorbell rang, and Nathan heard Margaret's voice calling out her arrival. She'd become a fixture in their lives, helping with the children when both parents were working and serving as the family's emotional anchor. "And I brought a surprise," Margaret announced, entering the kitchen with a familiar figure behind her. Eleanor O'Sullivan stood in the doorway, looking uncertain but hopeful. She'd aged in the past 2 years, her hair now completely silver, her face softer somehow. The sharp edges of corporate power had been replaced by something more human. "Grandma Eleanor!" Maeve jumped up and ran to her, wrapping her arms around Eleanor's legs. Nathan watched his mother's face transform as she hugged his daughter. Over the past year, Eleanor had been slowly earning her place in their family. It hadn't been easy. There had been difficult conversations, therapy sessions, and moments when Nathan wasn't sure they could bridge the gap between them. But the children had been Eleanor's salvation. Their unconditional love had taught her what Nathan never could. That worth wasn't measured in achievements, but in the simple act of showing up for the people you loved. "I brought something for you," Eleanor said, pulling out a small wrapped package. Inside was a photo album filled with pictures of Nathan as a child. Pictures he'd never seen before, moments of joy and laughter that his mother had captured but never shared. "I want you to have these," Eleanor said quietly. "I want you to remember that I loved you, even when I didn't know how to show it properly." Nathan flipped through the album, seeing himself at his children's age, and felt his heart heal a little more. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for giving me another chance," Eleanor said. Later that morning, after they'd shown Kathleen the playhouse, which she declared absolutely perfect, Nathan found himself alone with his wife in their bedroom while the children played outside with their grandmother. "I have something to tell you," Kathleen said, holding a note of excitement. "What's that?" "I'm pregnant." Nathan stared at her, his mind trying to process the words. "Pregnant?" "About 10 weeks," she said, laughing at his expression. "I know it's sooner than we planned, but
Nathan silenced her with a kiss, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around. "It's perfect," he said. "Everything about our life is perfect." "Even the chaos?" Kathleen asked. "Especially the chaos," Nathan said, setting her down gently. "I love our chaos. I love our noise. I love our beautiful, messy, wonderful family."
That evening, as they sat on their back porch watching the children play in their new playhouse, Nathan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He'd lost a company worth billions, but he'd gained something infinitely more valuable, a family built on love, trust, and the understanding that the best things in life couldn't be bought or sold. "Any regrets?" Kathleen asked, as if reading his thoughts. "Only one," Nathan said. "What's that?" "That it took me so long to figure out what really mattered," Nathan said, pulling her closer. "But I'm grateful for every day I get to spend making up for lost time." "Daddy, Mama," Maeve called from the playhouse. "Come play with us." Nathan and Kathleen exchanged a look, then abandoned their peaceful moment to join their children in the playhouse. As they crowded into the small space, laughing and playing pretend, Nathan realized that this was what success really looked like. Not a corner office or a stock price, but a moment of pure joy shared with the people you loved most in the world. The billionaire CEO was gone, but Nathan O'Sullivan, husband, father, and the luckiest man alive, had never been happier. Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered in the distance, but Nathan no longer felt the need to conquer it. He'd found something better than an empire. He'd found home. As the sun set over their suburban neighborhood, with his pregnant wife beside him and his children's laughter filling the air, Nathan knew that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, and the usual chaos that came with raising a family. But they would face it all together, as a family, bound by love and strengthened by the understanding that the most important victories were measured not in dollars or power, but in the simple act of loving and being loved in return. The man who had once believed that success meant standing alone at the top had learned that the greatest achievement was building a life worth sharing. And Nathan O'Sullivan had never been more successful in his life. What would you be willing to give up to gain everything that truly matters? Sometimes the greatest success stories aren't about what we build, but about what we choose to value most. If you watched this story all the way through, thank you. If it resonated with you, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I've got another story just as crazy you won't want to miss. And remember, thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.